Good morning. Roughly reflect we are back in session. Parties and counsel are present. All members of our jury and our alternates are present. Before we resume with the testimony, again, I want to apologize for the delays. We've had some short days, some off days. As you know, Mr. McGee is not been here the last couple of days. He's had some medical issues. Hopefully those are going to be resolved. I think he's hoping to that the doctors are going to okay him to return next week. So that's obviously what we're all hoping for. The last several witnesses and some of the upcoming witnesses were witnesses that Mr. McGee was the one who was going to be doing the examinations. So rather than just taking a week or so off to see what was going to be happening with Mr. McGee, Mr. Moline has been basically feverishly trying to get prepared to do those witnesses. So that's why there's been a couple of short days and a couple of some delays. I know it's frustrating. I assure you it's just as frustrating for all of the lawyers. Everybody, I think, is at a point where they want to be able to conclude presenting all of the evidence so you can finally start to do your job to start to evaluate the evidence and come to some conclusions. But obviously it's important that the attorneys are fully prepared to present the evidence, so that's why there's been some delays. As I said, I know it's frustrating, but it certainly is not anybody's fault. So I just wanted to give you that explanation and give you a little bit of an update on Mr. McGee to the extent that we know. And with that, Mr. Moline, you're ready to proceed?
Thank you.
Yes. All right, Mr. Moline, you may continue your examination of Sergeant Hanke.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
So, part of your investigation involved going to the San Diego area and interviewing Bruce Carter. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And there was another individual there that you interviewed. I think you did it maybe the same day, even back to back, and that was David Jackson. Is that correct?
Yes.
And those are the two gentlemen that work for Sentinel Security. Is that correct?
Yes, Jackson worked for him, and Carter was the owner of Sentinel Security.
And when you went down to San Diego to do that, you knew from your briefing from San Diego that at least Mr. Jackson was one of the security guards on duty on February 8th, 2010 at the shopping center in San Ysidro. Is that correct?
I was not part of the team for the briefing, but I did read the books, so I had read the reports, yes.
So you read the reports, and you also read Detective DeGaule's notes on that as well, correct?
That's correct.
So you had some background information before you went down there, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you also reviewed Special Agent Bowles' maps as to Mr. Merritt's location on February 8th that day, is that correct?
Yes, I did.
So you knew from looking at the maps that from about 1:30 for the rest of the day, Mr. Merritt was pinging, his phone was pinging off cell towers in Rancho Cucamonga in that area. Is that correct?
Objection, misstates the evidence.
That was his understanding.
I don't recall the exact dates and times of the maps. I'm sorry, I don't have that with me.
Okay. We're trying to locate those now. We'll put them up for you.
Thanks, sir.
But you do recall looking at those maps, correct?
I do recall that, yes.
And so would it be fair to say that the first, I guess, ping off the cell tower was at about 1:30, 1:31, and it was Mr. Merritt was at least from Investigator Bowles' maps traveling east on the 91.
Objection, Ms. Stacy, evidence lacks foundation with this witness.
Well, the objection sustained is basically there's hearsay or cumulative as to this witness. We already have Agent Bowles' testimony as to the phone locations on those dates.
I wonder if I can get some leeway on this foundational issue, what his knowledge was when he would do the interviews.
Your Honor, may we approach the sidebar?
Sure. The last objection is sustained as to the form of the questionnaire, but we have the specific exhibits from Agent Bowles. You can go over those with the witness as to what his understanding, if he was aware of those, and what his understanding was at the time he went down to do the interviews.
Sure. So you were aware, again, of, because you reviewed Kevin Bowles' maps of cell tower pinging for Mr. Merritt's phone, is that correct?
Not prior to the interview.
Not prior to the interview?
No.
Did you review Investigator Bowles' location data in any way, whether it was a report or a briefing or anything of that nature?
He was not, this was one of the initial interviews. He was not brought on until later.
Okay.
So yeah, I didn't have any of that information when I conducted the interviews.
Okay. When did you actually get any get any information from Investigator Bowles as to the tower pinging of Mr. Merritt on February 8th?
It was towards either the middle or the end of the investigation.
Okay. And what date did you interview David Jackson and Bruce Carter?
If I could refer to my report, sir. Okay. It was on Thursday, August 18th, 2014.
And your testimony is as of that date, you didn't know really anything about February 8th in terms of where Mr. Merritt's cell phone was pinging?
I did not have any information from Bowles, no.
Okay. So you went down and you interviewed Mr. Carter and Mr. Jackson, correct?
Yes, sir.
And the, I guess you had some records with you, correct? You had what I think you referred to as a tow record or a citation record of some sort. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's Exhibit 140, and I can show it to you if it refreshes your recollection.
I remember it, sir.
You do?
Yes, it was a tow receipt that the company filled out for that vehicle.
Let me just show it so we make sure that we're talking about the same thing.
Yes, sir.
It's actually 2 pages, but I think the second page is a little more informative.
Yes, sir, I recall this.
And what did you refer to that as? Was it a tow record or was it a citation record?
If I could look at my report again and see what I called it. I refer to it as a tow service form.
So on the tow service form, you were aware that Mr. James Murray, another security guard, is the one that signed that. Is that correct?
Yes.
So when you went down there, did you get a chance to interview Mr. Murray?
I don't believe so.
So you interviewed Mr. Jackson.
Yes.
Did Mr. Jackson tell you whether he was on duty or not at the time that the vehicle was towed?
Objection, calls for hearsay.
Overruled, yes.
I know they said there was a overchange. One of them worked graveyards and one of them worked day shift. One of them observed the vehicle and the other one towed the vehicle.
Did Mr. Jackson tell you that he works the grave shift on any particular day, or is that an everyday? Was that an everyday occurrence for him?
Objection, hearsay, cumulative 352, Max Foundation.
Overruled, you can answer.
I don't recall, sir.
Did he say he was working the grave shift on February 8th?
Objection, hearsay.
Overruled.
I don't recall.
Do you have a transcript of the interview?
I do not have a transcript now.
Okay.
Do you know what date those two testified?
January 10th.
Yes, thank you.
And also, I don't know if we have the calendar that the DA was using at the beginning of the trial, but your understanding is that February 8, 2010 was a Monday, correct?
I don't recall the day, I'm sorry.
Okay. Let's see if we can find that calendar somewhere.
I'm going to show you page 48 as the transcript of your interview.
Yes, sir.
You can read the whole page, and feel free to go before this page and after page 48, and you can look at whatever you want to put whatever context you want.
Thank you, sir.
I don't mean to block you.
That's okay.
I just want the jury to look at while you're looking, exhibit 5.
Thank you. Oh, just the calendar? Okay.
Okay, sir, I think I'm good.
And Sergeant Hanke, if you don't mind, just taking a look at the calendar that the DA prepared in this case. You see that the February 8th is a Monday, correct?
It's not labeled, but if it's set up like a calendar, it looks like it's a month.
Okay, great. So when you were talking to Mr. Jackson, the date that the car was parked there, he referred to it as Sunday, correct?
He did. He said it was a transition on Sunday.
Right. And his hours were different on the weekend than they were during the week.
Objection, hearsay, cumulative.
Overruled.
He said he normally worked Monday through Friday, but he said the store's hours closed earlier on Sundays.
So when you talked to him about working on, he didn't refer to an actual date like February 8th or February 9th. He referred to days of the week, correct?
Yes, sir. He said he's working mostly like Monday through Friday. That's what he said specifically.
Because one of the issues was who was on duty in the evening hours of February 8th? Was it Murray or was it Jackson?
Objection. Argumentative as phrased, and it's also cumulative to Mr. Jackson's testimony.
The objection sustained.
You wanted to know who was working that day, right?
Yes, sir.
And you wanted to know specifically who was working in the daylight to evening hours, and then he came on after that, right?
Yes, sir. I was asking about the 8th and the tow service receipt.
Were you asking about the 8th? Were you asking about the 8th, or were you asking about days of the week?
I was asking specific to the actual tow.
Okay. But as to the date that Mr. Jackson is referring to, he's referring to Sunday, correct?
Yeah, I didn't refer to it. He referred to it as a Sunday.
Did you ever correct him and say, hey, wait a minute, February 8th was a Monday?
I don't know if I did. I'm sorry. I would have to look at the transcript, but I don't
You
recall.
can look through it if you like. It is fairly long, but I've marked with stickies the relevant portions if you want to go to my sticky notes, but otherwise you can look at it if you want.
I don't recall if it was a Monday or not, sir. So I don't know if I asked him that.
Okay.
Thanks.
I'm going to put up Exhibit 140 for the jury to see. That's the tow. I already forgot what you said.
A tow service agreement, or yeah, I forgot what I said. I'm sorry.
Tow service agreement, okay.
Tow service.
Sure, we
form.
can get it electronically, that'd be great. Would you like me to bring you a copy, or do you have one?
I don't have one, sir.
I'll bring it.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
We're just going to pull it up. Maybe we can dim the lights and blow it up a little bit. And we'll go to page 2 if you don't mind, okay, Sergeant Hanke?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is the document that you referred to, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. So if we go down a little bit more, we'll see the person that signed it, correct?
Yes.
And that was James Murray.
Yes.
And there were some times that have been testified to earlier, and if we scroll up, we'll look at those times. It says time observed. Do you recall that?
Yes, sir.
And on this form, it indicates 21:18, and that would be 9:18 p.m.
Correct.
And then there's a time authorized of 22:19, which would be 10:19, correct?
Yes, sir.
And time off property would be 23:05, which would be the, I guess, the time that the actual tow truck took the vehicle.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, according to this form, the time observed of the McStay trooper was 9:18, correct?
Yes.
And what time did that shift end? Whether whoever was working, whether it was Jackson or Murray, do you know what time the shift ended?
I believe, in looking at my report, he said he worked a swing shift, and I believe he said 11 o'clock.
So 11 o'clock was the time that either Murray or Jackson would take over, correct?
He said he worked until 11. I don't know if there was overlap.
Right. But the...
You talking about Jackson, it's the one you interviewed.
I'm sorry, I believe I interviewed Jackson and Carter.
Okay. So when you say he,
Oh, I'm sorry, Carter, if I can refer to my report to be for specifics. I'm sorry, I think it was on the transcript that I saw that, sir. If I can see the transcript again, I'm sorry.
Oh, absolutely.
What page was it? 48? And this is David Jackson, correct?
You did actually, they bunched the interview into one interview. I'm not sure why, but it encompasses Mr. Carter, and then Mr. Carter, I think, calls Mr. Jackson over, if I understand, if I remember.
Objection. Is counsel testifying? Is there a question pending? Move to strike his comments.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yes, David Jackson said he worked swing shift, ending at 11.
So 11 o'clock is when the changeover takes place, correct?
I don't know if that's when.
Again, this is all hearsay and cumulative without foundation.
The last objection is in response to speculation and conclusion.
So, let me ask this. You said you got to review the reports of the law, correct?
I did look at them, yes, sir.
And so then you were aware when you went to interview Mr. Jackson that it was Mr. Murray.
Objection. Calls for hearsay, lacks foundation. If you'd like to call.
It goes to impeachment and this.
Your Honor, may we approach sidebar, please?
They can't approach sidebar every time they walk their way.
Well, counsel, you don't need to argue back and forth. The last objection sustained is calling for hearsay as to anything about Mr. Murray.
Well, you reviewed the materials for Detective Duvall, correct?
I read through them, yes.
And do you recall who told Detective Duvall where the vehicle was parked?
Objection. Relevance, lacks foundation, calls for hearsay.
I don't recall.
Detective Duvall's report. His report is case 6101. I've marked it on the side that you can look at whatever you want.
Okay, thank you.
For a refresher memory.
I don't recall. It refreshed my memory now, but yes, sir, I don't remember specifically reading
Who
that.
was it that showed Detective Duvall where the car was?
Objection. Double hearsay.
Sustained. Sounds like Detective Duvall is proceeding. Objection sustained.
Did you recall, did you review Detective Duvall's handwritten notes?
I don't remember.
I asked you earlier if you did, and you said that you had.
I reviewed a lot of stuff, sir. I'm sorry, I don't remember specifics.
So when you went down to interview Mr. Jackson, was Mr. Murray there?
I don't recall that. I don't think he was.
Did you make arrangements? But Mr. Murray was still alive then, correct?
Objection. Lacks foundation.
Sustained.
Well, you asked Mr. Jackson about Mr. Murray, correct?
Yes, sir.
And he said that he would give you his phone number.
Objection.
His phone number, correct?
Misstates the evidence and also calls for hearsay.
Overruled.
Cumulative.
You can answer.
I don't recall. I'd have to look at the transcript, sir. Sorry.
It may be in your report as well.
It might be. I'm sorry.
Look at that. If you can look at your report and I'll find it in the transcript.
Yes, sir. It's not in there. Okay,
Does that refresh your memory?
it does.
So is it true that you were discussing with Mr. Jackson about making arrangements to protect Mr. Murray?
Yes.
So that would necessitate the fact that Mr. Murray would be alive at that point, correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, you were making arrangements to meet up or talk with Mr. Murray. Did that ever happen?
I don't recall if I did or somebody else did. I would have to look at the reports.
Sure. Refresh your memory.
I don't have Mr. Murray's report.
Is there a report?
I'm not sure, sir.
I know you're looking at your colleagues. If they want to point to you a report, that's fine with me.
Yeah, I don't recall speaking with them.
You didn't speak with Mr. Murray.
I don't believe so.
Did you ever check to see if any of your colleagues spoke to Mr. Murray, the person who authored this tow form?
I did not.
Now, did you at some point after that, well, since you reviewed Detective Dugal's reports, you were aware that, and with the jury's heard testimony already from Detective Dugal, that Mr. Murray told Detective Dugal that the car, the
Objection
vehicle-
calls for hearsay and assumes facts that have not been presented in evidence.
Sustained.
Your Honor, it goes to the detective's state of mind.
The objection sustained.
So, what was your understanding by looking at Detective Dugal's reports of when the earliest possible the McStay trooper could have arrived at the parking lot?
Objection, that calls for hearsay, speculation, and lacks foundation.
Objection sustained is calling for speculation and conclusion.
Did you review anything in Detective Dugal's report that indicated when the earliest possible time the McStay vehicle could have been there?
Objection.
Calls for a yes or no, Your Honor.
Then it's not relevant whether he reviewed those reports.
Well, we'll let you answer yes or no.
I don't remember at the time, but the one that you just showed me had a time on it. I don't recall specifically before the interview.
Can I show you that again?
Sure. Okay, thank you.
So, you went down and you talked to Mr. Jackson. You had already read this report, right?
I don't recall if I did before. I read binders and binders worth of material. So
Specifically, when you go, I would imagine, when you go you're going to talk to Mr. Jackson and Mr. Carter, you're going to want to know what they said before, right?
not necessarily. Not necessarily. I want to keep an open mind, keep an open.
You can still keep an open mind and know what they said before, right?
Yeah, I could. It can. I mean, they weren't suspects at the time. I just wanted to go down as open mind and get, maybe their memory changed or possibly. But yes, I would like to review some of those things. I don't know if I did prior to this interview.
How did you know where to go? How did you know who they were?
Because I knew where the car was found.
Okay, but how did you know where they worked or where their address was?
I must have looked at a report that said Sentinel Security.
So you went to their report, you looked at it, you got the information, and then you went down there. Isn't that right?
I'm sure I did. Yes, sir.
So you knew the his time.
Objection calls for hearsay, lacks foundation.
Sustained.
This question doesn't actually count. I'm not asking for what the
Council approach with the reporter and the report at hand. The last objection is sustained.
Do you know when you reviewed Detective DeGaule's report, do you know when Detective DeGaule interviewed Mr. Murray?
Sir, as I sit here, it was over 5 years ago. I don't remember anything from DeGaule's reports. I don't remember anything from San Diego. I couldn't tell you specifics.
The one that you were referring to before.
Okay. Yes, sir.
And when did Detective DeGaule interview Mr. Murray?
I believe it says February 16, 2010.
So that was less than 2 weeks after McStay disappeared, right?
Yes.
So it would be pretty fresh in their mind at that time, at least more so than in 2014 when you went down there.
Objection calls for speculation.
I would assume so, yes.
And I can't go into the time with you, but you are aware that Detective DeGaule ordered the surveillance tapes for the shopping center, correct?
I just saw that in the report.
You were aware of that before, correct?
I would imagine I read that, yes. I don't recall specifically.
Did you watch the surveillance tapes?
I did not.
Watch.
I don't know if I saw the surveillance tapes. I don't remember seeing the surveillance tapes from there.
But you know that Detective DeGaule collected surveillance tapes. Not only for this shopping center, but the surrounding shopping centers as well.
I'm not aware of that. I'm sorry. As I sit here, I don't recall that.
You were the person that was assigned to deal with the San Diego Shopping Center and the security company, correct?
Yeah, I was investigating the tow receipt, yes.
Did anybody go with you on the, I think you said, August?
18th, I don't recall if there was anyone with me.
So, as you sit here today, you remember if Detective DeGaule ordered this surveillance tape?
I don't remember. Sure.
Objection cumulative.
Your objection sustained is cumulative.
Do you know the times that the surveillance tape for the shopping center was ordered for? Like from what time to what time?
Objection lacks foundation, cumulative.
Sustained.
Did you ever talk to Detective DeGaule about his interview with Mr. Murray?
I did not.
If you reviewed Detective DeGaule's report, you were aware then that it was Mr. Murray that was on duty that day, correct?
Objection assumes facts not evidence, calls for hearsay.
Overruled. You can answer if that was his understanding.
I believe Jackson was on the swing shift and Murray came in on graveyard.
Swing shift,
Swing shift is 2 to 11 and graveyard would be after that.
so 2 in the afternoon to 11.
Yes, sir. That's why I spoke with Jackson.
Okay. But if you reviewed Detective DeGaule's report and that said something different, were you aware of that?
Objection assumes facts not known.
Overruled, Mr.
I don't recall.
So, did you do any follow-up with anyone regarding the Isuzu Trooper at the San Ysidro Shopping Center?
I don't believe so.
So that was just that one date?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, before you actually went there on August 18th,
Yes, sir.
did you actually have a conversation with either Mr. Carter or Mr. Jackson over the phone?
I don't believe so.
Did you you just showed up and it was not a kind of a planned thing? It was just, hey, here I am.
Yeah, I wanted to see where the parking lot was, where it was close to the border, how close it was, just get a layout of the scene and then see if there was anybody available to talk.
I'm going to just show you page 4, and if this refreshes your memory, we actually talked to Mr. Carter prior to your arrival there.
Oh, okay.
Because you'd agree that everything in the transcript is not on your report, right?
Yeah, I'd agree that, yes, it's a summary. Okay.
Does that refresh your memory?
It doesn't, but I'm reading it. I agree that it happened, so I don't remember.
But would you agree that you had a conversation with Mr. Carter prior to your arrival?
I might have called him to see if he was going to be there, yes.
Did you guys discuss the purpose of your visit?
I don't recall.
And you did write a report though, correct?
Yes.
And what's the, you said that the date of the interview was August 18th. What's the date of the report?
It looks like it says August 14th, 14th.
The date of the report?
Yeah, it must have been a typo.
It's dated the 14th.
Yes, sir.
And you're saying that's a typo because your interview didn't happen until the 18th.
If I'm saying the interview happened on the 18th, I wouldn't have been able to write the report on the 14th, so it must have been a typo.
Did you ever change your report in any way?
I don't believe so.
So when you made your report, did you do your report after you talked to Mr. Carter on the phone?
No, sir.
I'm going to show you this report. This is Bates. This is 8070. Is that your report as well? Is it the same report?
The font looks different, but it looks similar. Yes, sir. Looks the same.
And what's the date on the report that I just got?
That one says 8/22. So maybe I corrected the date. I don't recall that though.
So, I guess the date correction is not such a big deal, but isn't it true that you actually discussed this whole timing issue with Mr. Carter on the phone prior to you going down there and interviewing him?
I don't recall that.
What about Mr. Jackson? When you talked to him on the phone prior to going there, did you discuss the timing issue with him?
I don't know if I talked to Jackson on the phone.
How long was your conversation on the phone with either Mr. Carter or Mr. Jackson prior to going down there on August 18th?
I don't remember the phone conversation, but I imagine it was just to set it up to see if he was there. So I don't recall the phone conversation at all.
Well, I'll let you discuss the McStay case? You told him about it? And,
I believe I asked him if he was familiar with the case, and he said he was familiar with the case.
that was on the phone, right?
No, I believe that was in person.
Okay. Did you talk to him about the McStay case prior to going down there on the telephone?
I don't recall, sir.
You have a transcript there.
I don't.
Up there.
I'm sorry.
Remember, bring it.
Sorry, sir.
Okay, what about Mr. Jackson? In your interview with Mr. Jackson, he was very interested in trying to help the situation. You recall that?
I think all witnesses were interested in trying to help the case. Yes, sir.
So, just back to the date change. As you sit there today, you don't remember who actually did the date change.
I don't recall, sir.
Okay. Do you know who would have done it if it wasn't you?
I don't know.
Do you know if you changed the dates on any other report that you did?
I don't recall changing the date at all, sir.
Okay. That's an unusual thing, right? Has that ever happened in your career where the date of a report changes?
There's lots of typos all the time, yes, sir.
Okay. Did that happen? The actual date of the report changes? You've had that happen before?
The date of the report or the interview?
The date of the report?
I don't recall, sir.
Okay.
I'm going to show you the transcript. And this is regarding the section of what you talked about on the telephone prior to going down there.
Okay.
I'm going to show you page 5. But of course, feel free to go wherever you want to go in that transcript.
Okay.
Is that fresh memory?
A little bit, yes, sir.
So you recall talking about the mistake case prior to going to meet with them?
I'm sure they asked why they wanted. I'm sure I told them why. Yes.
And so, again, if you recall, if you don't, that's fine, but how long was your conversation with Mr. Carter and or Mr. Jackson prior to doing that?
Question asked and answered, Lax Foundation.
I don't remember the phone call, sir.
And when was it then that you would have reviewed Special Agent Bowles' maps that he did as to where Mr. Merritt was pinging off cell towers?
I would have to see the Bowles report and see that. I don't recall the date.
Approximately the time that you interviewed Mr. Jackson and Mr. Carter on August 18th, approximately how long after would that have been?
I completely be guessing. I have no idea. At least a month, maybe a couple weeks. It was sometime between that interview and the interview with the defendant. So sometime between that. I don't know the dates though.
Would you agree that in connection with where the Isuzu trooper was found on the 8th, would you agree that the time that it could have potentially been taken there would be important?
Objection, argumentative, not relevant, opinion.
Sustained response for speculation and conclusion.
Was the arrival time of the trooper in the San Ysidro shopping center one of the issues that you were investigating?
Same objection.
Overruled, you can answer.
I don't believe that was. I'm sorry. Can you rephrase that or say the question again?
The time at which the Isuzu trooper got to the San Ysidro shopping center and was parked there, was that one of the issues you were investigating?
Yeah, I think that is important. Yes, sir.
So if there's a certain time frame that the Isuzu trooper would have been parked there, and if you have a range of time, then you would want to look at potential suspects to see where they might be, correct?
Possibly.
Okay. So is that why you reviewed Agent Bull's maps?
I didn't review those before the interview.
Okay. But afterward?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So when you reviewed the maps, were you able to determine the times and locations based off cell tower pinging Mr. Merritt's location?
Objection calls for hearsay, lacks foundation, and it's cumulative to Agent Bull's testimony.
Objection sustained is calling for speculation conclusion.
But you did review Agent Bull's, whether it was maps or information or whatever, correct?
I did look at them later, yes.
Okay. Was it your understanding that the time frame at which, if Mr. Merritt were to have driven the car to San Ysidro, would have had to have been in the morning hours between 9:30 and 11:30?
Objection calls for speculation, lacks foundation.
So when Mr. Murray gave his times as to when he was working and when he noticed the
Objection lacks foundation. It's not that.
After reviewing the reports in San Diego, did you get a better understanding of what time the Isuzu Trooper would have been left at that parking lot?
Objection calls for speculation, lacks foundation.
Did you get to review Detective DeGaule's notes, handwritten notes?
Objection asked and answered.
I didn't hear the answer if you answered it. So I'd have to ask for permission to ask that again.
I don't recall looking at his notes.
Is it you just don't recall or you didn't?
I don't recall if I did or not.
Okay. So if I showed you the notes of that professional information,
It might, I don't know. I don't remember any handwritten notes, sir. I'm sorry.
you see the notice that sheet there?
Yes, sir.
Do you mind turning to that page? You recall reviewing that page handwritten notes?
Objection lacks foundation based on his previous answer.
Oh, any handwritten notes, sir? I'm sorry.
Were you aware that Detective DeGaule, well, you didn't attend the briefing, right?
I did not.
Were you brought up to speed regarding the briefing?
I read all the books, so I don't know if I was brought up to speed.
Well, somebody told you there was a briefing, right?
Yes.
And you probably asked, well, what they said, right?
At the time, I was on another case, so I was not involved in the case at all. I came a couple months later.
At some point, you brought yourself up to speed.
Yes, I read the books, sir.
Okay. And the books, as you sit here today, you don't remember the books, including the notes.
I don't recall those.
Okay. Would you agree that, and to borrow a line from the prosecution, to be thorough and complete, that it would be important that you have all the information regarding a specific topic that you're investigating?
Sure, yes.
I just have one moment, Your Honor. And I know that Sergeant Hanke has to leave, so I'm mindful of that.
Thank you, sir.
you didn't attend the official briefing from San Diego. You've already said that. But did you get a briefing from Sergeant Bachman regarding the San Ysidro shopping center?
I don't recall. I just know that that was the location, and that's who I needed to talk to. So I don't remember a briefing.
Well, somebody told you about it, and the person that told you about it was that Sergeant Bachman, if you recall?
I don't recall, sir. I'm sorry.
Okay. I have nothing further. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything on,
No questions.
all right. Thank you again for coming in, Sergeant Hanke. I appreciate it. We'll go ahead and you're excused, still subject to recall. So make sure you don't take any of our exhibits with you.
There's one right here.
Okay. And Mr. Lee, you can call your next witness.
Detective Hart?
Okay.
I'm going to need a couple minutes, Your Honor, to find his report, but...
Okay, we'll take a short morning recess, about 10 minutes. Keep in mind the admonitions previously given to you not to form or express any opinion about the case, not to discuss the case. We'll see everything back.